Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to this webinar, which is part of the EU OSHA campaign on safe and healthy work in the digital age. Our aim today is to highlight the opportunities that the digital age of work brings to managing musculoskeletal health, but also to consider the risks. And the intent is to establish a deeper shared understanding of how workplaces, and that means employers and workers, can take advantage of digitalization and manage those risks. I'm Neil Bettridge, an advocate for people with rheumatic and musculoskeletal conditions, having grown up with one such condition myself, and I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the Global Alliance for Musculoskeletal Health, GMUSC. And this webinar is being brought to you jointly by GMUSC and EULAR. A very quick word about language. With such a wide range of conditions within this family, we are going to be using at times RMDs for rheumatic and musculoskeletal diseases, MSK for musculoskeletal, MSDs for musculoskeletal disorders. So just be aware that we're being very inclusive, and all of these terms encompass all of the conditions you might think of, from back pain to rheumatoid arthritis, to axSpA to gout, etc. And during the webinar, we're going to consider the good, meaning the opportunities arising from new work in the new digital age, the bad, meaning the risks, and the ugly, meaning the possible longer-term consequences of the digital age of work on people's MSK health, unless we take wise preventative measures from the start. There'll be time discussion at the end, so please post your questions and comments throughout the webinar using the Q&A function. The world of work is changing. We saw that through the pandemic, of course, and digital technologies are rapidly changing how, where, and when we work. And for workers and employees across all sectors, digital technology offers increased opportunities, but also presents those challenges and risks in terms of safety and health. So the campaign aims to raise awareness of these issues, but also develop practical knowledge about the safe and productive use of digital technologies in the workplace, and also to consider the new and emerging risks and opportunities related to digitalization in relation to work. And this is going to be achieved by bringing stakeholders together to both share knowledge, but also develop and distribute good practice. To briefly illustrate the scale of the problem, of all workers in the EU with a work-related health problem, 60% identify musculoskeletal conditions as their most serious issue. And we know that they are amongst the commonest reasons for people to leave the labour market prematurely. They were the focus of EU OSHA's previous campaign entitled Lighten the Load, but musculoskeletal health is still highly relevant to this new and ongoing campaign. And so throughout the rest of this webinar, we'll be looking at this from a number of perspectives: worker, person with lived experience, and so on. But on the back of highlighting the EU OSHA campaign, it's my pleasure now to pass to Sarah Copsey, who's going to present on behalf of EU OSHA. Enjoy the webinar, everybody.
Thank you very much, Neil. I'll just share my screen. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. I'm speaking today as an active senior for EU OSHA in a voluntary capacity, as I'm now a retired member of staff. As Neil has mentioned, the EU OSHA Digital and Work campaign is highlighting both the health and safety risks, such as increased control and monitoring of work, but also opportunities, such as new devices and work methods to support working with health conditions. As part of the previous campaign and previous EU OSHA activity on musculoskeletal disorders, this included a report analysing return to work case studies. The report includes my own case. I developed severe back pain. I don't have a formal diagnosis, but it involved a small discal hernia, the piriformis and gluteal medial muscles, and sacroiliac joint on the right side. Age and poor muscle tone, and extremely painful sciatica. It also involved prolonged static sitting and intensive display screen equipment work. This resulted in me having a year off work. Sitting, standing, lying, and walking could all result in extreme pain. And at its worst, I could not walk for more than 10 minutes before the pain kicked in. So digital devices and work organisation can assist in a return to work, as in my case, but they're unlikely to be sufficient alone. In my case, supporting factors included a supportive workplace, which had a return to work policy and a restroom. I already had a sit-stand desk, ergonomic mouse and keyboard. Gradual return to work and a return to work plan based on risk assessment gave me a feeling of control. And my physiotherapist used graded exercises and focused on return to work. And also lots of cushions were involved. However, various digital devices and work measures were also part of the process. Voice-activated software and a wireless headset really helped me to reduce awkward movements and postures from using the keyboard and mouse. With a wireless headset, you can move around while you dictate. You can also dictate into a recorder and transfer this to the computer later using software. So this also released me from my desk. The timer on my smart watch was really useful for reminding me to take breaks. And a phone app also helped me check that I was moving about enough and getting enough active exercise each day. Leaving my mobile phone away from my desk forced me to get up to use it. And teleworking helped with my gradual reintegration, starting with 1 hour at home and 3 hours in the office. I had my symptoms under control, but was really nervous about whether returning to work would bring them back. 3 hours in the office felt manageable, and the hour from home enabled me to complete the required 4 hours a day. Following my return to work, I'd been improving and I was working 80% of the time when COVID arrived, and I moved to full-time teleworking. During the pandemic, I actually improved considerably, and I think some of the reasons for this are having a good ergonomic workspace. I attached a screen, mouse and keyboard to my laptop, and I already had a sit-stand desk at home from IKEA. I found I was moving around much more, doing some work sitting and then taking a break to do a small household chore or some stretching whilst making a coffee. In the office, long meetings caused me difficulties, even if my employer allowed me to get up and move around occasionally during them. At home, I had the wireless headset. So during meetings, if I was just listening, I turned off the screen and moved around as much as I wanted. I could even lie down on my Pilates mat if I needed to. And I had more flexibility around when and how I worked. And it was easier to get to my physiotherapy and Pilates sessions. So as in my case, digital devices can support people working with an MSD. They're often simple and low cost, as mine were. For example, a navigator keyboard with pre-programmed buttons for email, print, save, etc. Or programmable keyboards where programming the keys position on the keyboard can help people to modify the keys according to their physiology. There's predictive text software and voice recognition systems, as I use. Eye movement technology, however, remains very expensive. There's also handwriting recognition software And conference tools now enable online and hybrid training and meetings as this one, so teleworkers can be included. Exoskeletons can be used to reduce physical effort, but they're very task specific, and you need to be very careful how they're used to avoid them causing new risks. I will quickly mention the basis of good teleworking. Firstly, a risk assessment is needed, which can be done using checklists, getting the worker to take photos or a video, or a home visit with their permission. So this was important in my case to get the work set up right. Good ergonomics involves equipment, but also things like noise and temperature. Technical support was available to me, and also training on setting up the workplace and taking regular breaks and changing posture and disconnecting from work should be provided. And psychosocial elements include keeping teams informed and agreeing work and hours with individuals. Just to finish by saying on behalf of EU OSHA that the campaign on digitalisation is currently focusing on teleworking until the end of January. Check the campaign website for further information about teleworking, and thank you for your attention. I'll now hand over to Johannes Brookman from Siemens to make the next presentation on how digital technology can be useful to reduce risks to MSK health. Over to you, Johannes, and I'll just stop sharing.
Thanks, Sarah. So let me just quickly share my screen as well. There we are. You should be able to see the presentation. Let's go into presentation mode. A warm welcome also from my side. I have the pleasure to present the good. So how digital technologies can be used to reduce the risk to musculoskeletal health at Siemens. Before we jump into the topic, I just want to briefly introduce myself. I'm Johannes. I'm an international OSH manager at Siemens. In my function, part of the EHS governance team. And also my key focus areas is really looking for technology that helps to improve occupational health and safety within the company, meaning that we want to improve the workplaces and also make sure that our employees can work healthy, safe, and also that we can increase the well-being. And working for Siemens might give you a different picture of a company that we are of today. So you might think that we are building refrigerators, coffee machines, and phones. That's not the case anymore. We are a technology company that transforms the everyday for everyone. And within our businesses, we are touching the life of each and every one of us. And you probably have been in touch with a Siemens product, solution, or with the services within the couple of last days or so. Whether it be a train or whether it be the car that you were driving in that was manufactured using Siemens technology. What I'm saying here is that we are a company with more than 320,000 employees globally with different workplaces all around. And this poses challenges, of course, in the workplace design. And that's why we at Siemens using digital technology to have a focus on ergonomics and also on the improvement of musculoskeletal health. And I would like to give you like two concrete examples how we're going to do this in our company. And we use the digital technologies, especially for creating new workplaces on the one hand, but on the other hand, also for assessing existing workplaces to make sure that they're up to the standard. And when you look at the picture on the right side, you will probably see that this was...
Sorry, Johannes, we cannot see the slide, only the insights.
You can't see the slides?
You are not in presentation mode. Yes, sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was in presentation mode, but it's obviously just not picking it up. If it's fine for you, I will continue using the view like this.
Perfect.
All right. So as I said, if you look at the picture on the right side, that's obviously an improvement potential here. With all in our ability to use digital technology, what we do is really focus on the human-centered design. So the work needs to be designed around the employees and not the other way around. And this is also in the solutions that we offer to the market. So it's not just that we do it for ourselves and our employees, but also offer this for our customers and clients. And therefore, I have one Siemens solution that I would like to show you here. And this is basically called this Technomatics Process Simulate Human. And this is human-centered design and simulation. We're using digital technology here. So it's technology combining the real and the digital. So we have C8 data and also digital twin data for process simulation and also for plant simulation, where we're using accurate anthropometric databases to make sure that the workplaces are designed for a diverse workplace, and also that it fits in regards to the movement. So we can simulate tasks within that software. So we can make sure that people can walk around freely, and we can anticipate how they interact with their environment. And this can also be done by using virtual reality, as you can see in the video on the left side. So it enables us to design workplaces healthier and safe before they're even built. And this gives us and also our clients the opportunity to set up to the latest requirements, but they can also assess ergonomic factors in those setups. So we do have an assessment that gives indications on eye movement. They give indications on the strengths or fatigueness of employees. So for new workplaces, that would be a solution that is using different digital technologies. But how does it look like if we are looking for existing workplaces? And here, I don't want to share a Siemens solution. I just want to talk about a technology that we are using from external vendors that are offering their services. And this is basically an ergonomic risk assessment based on artificial intelligence. And to be a bit more precise, this is computer vision. That is a subsegment of AI. And this is basically capturing the work of workers by respecting the data privacy, of course, and also the cybersecurity. By filming, then capturing the work, we have the opportunity with computer vision to transform that 2D footage into a 3D model of the bodies. And with the post estimation, we can also see, as you can see in the picture here, where the shoulders are, where the knees are. And on top of that, it is actually analyzing the joint angle and the risks based on medical standards like EULAR, REBA, and NIOSH. Those assessments are built in the algorithm and give the opportunity to analyze a workplace and to point out risk in almost real time. To do so, it is basically the idea that we give our experts the opportunity to use technology with purpose to really do their job the best they can. We're not wanting to replace ergonomic experts or EHS experts by technology. That's not the point. We really want to enhance the skill set of our experts. And that's why with all the technology we are using, as I pointed out, we are also focusing on the educational bit of it, because it's not like, here's a technology, go ahead and use it. You just need to be in a state where you are able to use it, where you can bring it to work. And that's why we focused with an external partner on an educational series to bring our EHS community to a point where they really can work with new technologies, like we saw with AI, but also with extended reality, virtual reality, and also robotics and automation. But not stopping at the EHS or ergonomics experts here, we are also focusing on the educational part for our leaders. So leaders, they also need to know why technology can be a helpful tool, especially for musculoskeletal health and preventing musculoskeletal diseases. So all the technology that we are using internally and also for customers, they are specifically useful also for our own health, safety, and well-being. And that's why in this year, we created that leadership series where we helped our leaders to explain and teach them how they can integrate those new technologies in their areas of responsibilities. So in a nutshell, at Siemens, we are using digital technologies with the purpose to make the workplaces healthier and safer for our employees and to increase the well-being by enhancing and enabling our EHS professionals to use their technology with purpose in the right way and to support our employees. And it's not like I'm telling you there's something that you can improve. No, it's science-based analytics that helps you to start a dialogue and then jointly work together on a solution. And what the good thing here is, with those digital technologies, we can really focus on what matters most and go away from paper-based activities, checklists, and risk assessment. We can really invest the time using technology in the conversation and jointly find ways to better improve and better set up the workplaces. So much from my perspective. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we can clarify them later. Thank you for your attention, and I'm handing over to Tony.
Thank you very much. And if you can stop screen sharing. Yep.
Perhaps we should just say it's the Q&A, I think, for questions and comments, please.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to make any comments or questions, please use the Q&A. And thank you very much to Sarah and Johannes for describing the good side of digital age of work. But I'm now going to consider the possibly bad side of digital working environments. I'm Tony Wolf. I'm a rheumatologist and I'm co-chair of the Global Alliance for Musculoskeletal Health. And along with you, we are campaign partners in this EU OSHA campaign. So if we are considering the bad side, we have to think of all aspects of digital workplaces. There's digital platform work, worker management through artificial intelligence, the automation of tasks, smart digital systems, and also remote and hybrid working. And we've heard some example of these already. And what I want to consider is the potential risks associated with these different forms of digital workplaces. And it's potentially a very large problem because over 80% of workplaces across Europe use personal computers, laptops, tablets, smartphones, and other mobile devices, and 73% of workers across Europe are using these devices. But how many workers have been trained to touch type and to correctly use these technologies? Were any of you formally taught how to touch type? Because the way you operate devices depends on the right technique. So if we're looking at the risks and bad side, what are the known risk factors for MSDs in the workplace? Well, it's twisting and lifting, injuries, repetitive movements, awkward postures, working on computers with poor workstations, prolonged sitting and sedentary behavior, intermittent heavy physical work, the pace of work, and anxiety, stress, and fatigue. And many of these will be impacted upon by changing to digital working. Firstly, I want to consider what is called digital platform work. And this is where the work someone is doing is provided through, on, or mediated by an online platform. And it's a wide spectrum ranging from people who deliver parcels or taxi drivers right through to highly skilled people working online, such as doing remote programming. A wide range of different tasks. People often like it because it gives autonomy and flexibility, and it also improves access for labour market for disadvantaged workers, people with things which limit what they can do. And we've heard that being on the good side, but there are risks associated with this sort of work as well, of being isolated, irregular working hours, often managed by a computer in terms of performance, with monitoring, and also not necessarily a very well regulated industries in terms of occupational health and safety. Often people, particularly at the lower end, delivery people, are doing tasks which might be more dangerous, and they often will be pushing themselves, doing long hours because it's pay per activity. And people encounter physical and psychological risks which are insufficiently prevented and managed. And we have to think about how do we actually make these forms of work safer for people and reduce those risks. And I think because a lot of these are done by people working on their own, yes, the employer clearly has a legal responsibility and a moral responsibility, but also people need themselves to know how to avoid and mitigate the risks to their health. We need to get people such as an Uber driver to remember they need to have a break between pickups and get out of the car and stretch their legs and have a mini break and things like that. Otherwise, they will suffer the physical consequences. Another area is the automation of tasks, and we've heard some great examples of things being done in Siemens, and there's other technologies around out there which are improving how tasks are done and reducing the need for people to do high risk or repetitive tasks or lifting and things like that. And so there are many advantages of this, but there's also a danger of possible loss of specific skills. And one thing which was highlighted by Johannes, which I think was a very good example, where he said that their focus is designing work around the employees, because many production lines are designed around the product and not necessarily thinking about the operator of the technologies. So we need to make sure that there's good worker involvement in designing automation of tasks to ensure there are no unintended consequences. Another area which the campaign is considering is worker management through AI. And this is where performance systems which monitor workers, gathering data often in real time on how productive they're being, and sometimes AI making decisions about whether they're performing to standards and whether they should continue in employment. So this can lead to quite a lot of stresses on the individuals and lead them to work faster. And we know one of the greatest risk factors for workplace musculoskeletal problems are repetitive movements. We're designed to do a degree of repetitiveness, but if it is continual in a forceful manner, high speed and lack of time recovery, that's when it starts leading to damage and problems. And there's a whole range of conditions: tendinitis, tenosynovitis, epicondylitis, such as what is called tennis elbow, carpal tunnel syndrome, the Curvain's tenosynovitis, which is inflammation in the wrist, shoulder pain, neck pain, and back pain. And these form a large number of the MSDs which cause work loss, usually short term, but sadly sometimes can be long term. And so we have to make sure that these performance management systems don't generate more of these. An area which Sarah has alluded to earlier is remote and hybrid working, and this is the focus of a campaign at the moment. And this is basically any form of work done remotely away from the employer's premises, usually at home. Often it's telework. Sometimes now it's hybrid, with people sometimes going in to work, but then they will often be hot desking and not having their own workspace either. And this is increasingly common, as you'll see from the statistics. As Sarah highlighted, there's many advantages of giving increased autonomy and flexibility, better work-life balance, improved motivation and productivity, reduces commute time, and enables people who have some degree of limitation or other things happening in their lives to still work and be productive. But there are downsides as well: isolation, work intensification, hours can be long, conflicts between private and work life, and poor behaviors in terms of posture and lack of physical activity. And if we think specifically around musculoskeletal health, one does get a lot of poor ergonomics. And the outcome of this is more musculoskeletal problems. And this was found with COVID and home working. People tend to be sedentary. They often adapt to bad posture because not everyone goes and acquires or is supplied with an appropriate workstation. They get discomfort and muscle loading and various musculoskeletal problems, and particularly neck pain and tender pain in wrists and fingers, and are at risk of repetitive strain. In addition, there can be psychological risks associated with home working, hybrid working, and we know that if someone is anxious and stressed and getting low, that sometimes that can cause musculoskeletal symptoms and certainly increases the impact that any musculoskeletal problem has. So it is an area which needs to be considered. And this is something where there needs to be clear policies by employers about the physical, ergonomic, and psychosocial aspects of home working and how to mitigate the risks. There needs to be risk assessment of the remote workplace, ideally individually, but that can be a challenge. And importantly, there needs to be training to make sure that people are using the equipment appropriately, assuming they do have the right equipment in the first place. One of the biggest problems is sedentary behavior. So very important that people try and have a normal pattern of work, even if it's in their own home, of changing posture frequently, taking stretches and mini breaks on a regular basis, and trying to incorporate movement into daily life. I often say to people, at the start of the day, go out of doors, walk around the block and back into the house so you feel you've gone to work, and do the same at the end of the working day. Managers play a very important role here in providing the right equipment and the training and promoting physical activity to encourage active breaks and short workouts, and generally stay connected so that people feel supported, because the isolation is a problem. Make sure that they talk to workers about their needs, expectations, and healthy disconnections. But it's very important that people themselves do the right thing, because in this situation, the employee is out of sight. They can do what they wish, work in the ways they like to, and sometimes they will not take the breaks even though they could. So you need to make sure that they set up a good work environment, adjust the workplace ergonomics, organize their work in partnership with their managers to make sure they have a good balance of work, a good daily program, avoid sedentary behavior and do as much physical activity as they can, and importantly, prevent psychosocial risks and stay connected. And if they are having lots of online meetings, make sure they somehow intersperse that with breaks or some social chit chat to try and make it not continuous work. I think one of the key challenges is making sure that people are enabled to do what they should do, but also that people do follow the recommendations in their training. So when it comes to the key takeaways about the bad side of digital work and musculoskeletal health, yes, there are all the advantages we've heard about reducing physical stresses and enabling people with arthritis and other musculoskeletal conditions and other causes of limitations to remain in productive work. But one needs to ensure that they do not create a bad occupational health environment with increased physical and mental stress. This needs thinking of potential impacts by bringing together employers, workers, and occupational health experts so it can be foreseen and mitigated against. And we need to make sure that businesses follow, as we've heard, the Siemens model of really focusing around the employee and designing work to enable them to stay in work and leave work healthy. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to Oliver Hendricks, who's going to talk about the ugly side of the digital age of work. And I'll stop sharing. And as said, please post questions in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Tony. And I would like to start by asking, can everybody see my screen now? Is it shared? Thank you very much. Because now it really gets ugly. I'm Oliver Hendricks. I'm a professor in rheumatology at the hospital in Esbjerg University of Southern Denmark. And I'm also a part of the EULAR advocacy committee. And very briefly, the agenda is to give you some aspects of the dark side of digitalization. I would like to present some philosophical reasoning, and of course, I will end with some take-home messages. So As always in our lives, the devil remains in the detail. And let's start to have a look what this means for the RMD patient. Well, we have a new diagnosis. It is the smartphone finger. And we know that it is something that happens because a lot of us uses our devices now, and some of us do that too much. And the smartphone finger is characterized by pain and stiffness of the affected finger, a clicking sound, difficulty to move the finger when you wake up in the morning, and numbness in your fingertip. If you have a look at the other two references, we have some very extreme, an example for overuse of gaming with the smartphone, and something that is somewhat more scientific. It's an article that investigates 315 patients with RMD conditions, and the answer was very clear. Computer work is not necessarily meant to be in the way we have it now, established to be really good enough for RMD patients. So here is kind of an easy start of what is difficult when we talk about these new times. But when we stay in the patient perspective, I will give you another impression of something that is very, very important. We now know that there are a lot of examples of especially visualization technique optimization by KI models. And this works really good, but it is not perfect. And this nice study performed by some colleagues from the University of Copenhagen showed that when something happens in the wrong way and a patient got a wrong treatment due to a wrong diagnosis, it's very hard for the patient to understand that this was actually performed by a computer. In other terms, human beings are very good to forgive human beings, but it's very difficult to forgive a machine. So do we have to adopt the quality level when we introduce AI models, because we now also have a new way of how AI communicates with the patient? I think this is very important. Well, some of my own experiences is that digitalization comes along with a lot of bureaucratic load. The GDPR is already heavily over-implemented. There is a high bureaucratic effort. We have a risk of technocratic overload, and we also have a risk of humanistic blackout and burnout. What I mean is, when I am, as a professional, trying to arrange new products or new projects, I have to do a lot of work in terms of making it work due to legislation. So we also have to look at what do we demand from the professionals in terms of establishing digital solutions in our medical world. What you see on the right place is what happens now that traffic lights are integrated in the bottom, because we're looking down. And this is actually something that is very, very scary for me, because a lot of my professional life is treating patients suffering from spondyloarthropathies, trying to help them not to be a victim to a disease that is bending their body. And on the other hand, I see that because we are now, as a consequence of overusing digital tools, regularly bending our bodies, our surroundings are adopting, for example, by putting the traffic light into the bottom. I think this is a very strong and very, very important signal of what is going on with us. I had the pleasure to meet Stephen Pemberton. He is one of the key person in the development of digitalization. He is Europe's first internet user. He was a co-developer of, for example, HTML. And the title of his conference was "There is no I in AI." I will return to this a bit later. What is the writer saying about this revolution? Well, Michele Serra, an Italian writer, wrote this book about his son, and he describes his son as an alien that somehow looks like a human being, but but his son is always lying and always with this square thing in his hands. So this, new way of how we use our body also in our spare time is important and has to and deserves our attention. This is a picture of my patient Else. She has a severe type of psoriatic arthritis, and this is how her foot looked since 2004. Every second year she got some help to get new shoes, but this was rejected in 2018. And this rejection was derived on an AI-based way how the municipality judged what is to be ordered. I spoke to these people and I got the explanation that they had, as a part of the way how to judge, the information that the X-ray was unchanged. But obviously, it was not in the system that an unchanged X-ray also could mean that the X-ray is still very, very bad. So I have the fear that automated analysis may contain serious mistakes as given by this example. There is also a very nice study that was published in this year showing who is actually the main force to bring AI and digitalization into our world. And ladies and gentlemen, it is not the patient, it is not the researcher, it is not the managers of the hospitals, it is actually the producers of AI and digitalization. I think this is also very important because it shows that we have to refine the way how we critically watch and judge which changes are really needed and where do they come from. Then I would like to give you some philosophical ideas. The word digit is actually derived from the Latin word for a finger. We know it in our medical word because it's always used when we, for instance, describe an X-ray finding, because then it's still going to be described by the radiologists as a change in the digit. It is also used by the cardiologists because the plant that is called in German the Fingerhut and in Latin the digitalis contains a compound that is very healthy when you're suffering from serious arrhythmias. So the key information here is digit is actually derived from the word meaning finger. Human beings are very creative. We do a lot of things with our fingers, as you can see. And I think it is very important that we are aware of being creative always and also in the future. Emotion is derived from ex motion, which means out of a movement. We are emotional beings, which means it's very important to be able to move. Without movement, there are no feelings. This brings me back to Stephen Pemberton. And he showed this very, very interesting picture derived by AI. And you know this very well-known artist, but what you can see here is that somehow her arm is now fixed to her knee and she got 6 fingers. Why? Because this is an artist using her body very, very creative, and that makes it for AI very difficult to know where is the hand and the arm and how many fingers do we have. So actually it's very interesting that digitalization contains the word digit but is not able to define how many digits human beings actually have. This is a bit sentimental. This is the entrance card for the 16-year-old version of myself watching Queen live in concert. It was the Works tour, and it contained a song entitled Machines, and this song has this sentence: when the machines take over, there is no place for rock and roll. So maybe this is a very, very ugly picture for the human future. This plant is called a sea squirt. It possesses a primitive nervous system which is used to find a place where there is a lot of plankton and a lot of movement in the water. But once this plant is placed there, it switches off the nervous system and it is not used any longer. So my take-home messages: AI and digitalization are already changing communication, diagnostic, and treatment in a decisive way. The potential of high speed and efficiency is challenged by the lack of transparency and requires constant critical consideration. I would like to introduce a new word. I call it nobodiness. Digitalization is disruptive and, among other things, a challenge to human musculoskeletal integrity. This is very important. And the impact of digital solutions on both mental health and human musculoskeletal integrity demands a digitalization body respecting act. We know this all. Mental health is only possible in a healthy body. Thank you very much. And with these words, I give and hand over to Loreto.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oliver. Thank you very much, everybody. So we have some minutes for discussion. I will lead in it. I am Loreto Carmona. I am past chair of advocacy at the European Alliance of Associations for Rheumatology. And thank you so much for all the questions that we have in the chat already and for all your presentations. So we have people thanking you what you shared. Thank you so much. And some people offering some examples of things that might be interesting. But I have the first question. It says that many studies have pointed to poor connection between ergonomics and the degree of musculoskeletal pain. And I will ask our two rheumatologists what they think about this. Tony, perhaps?
Sorry, I missed the question. Can you?
What is the connection between poor ergonomics and pain might not be straightforward. There are people with pain without
Yes.
with poor ergonomics and so forth.
I think the audience is probably mixed. And if you come from an occupational health background, the focus is around ergonomics and reducing physical risks. But as a rheumatologist, we see many people who develop musculoskeletal complaints, rheumatic diseases, other reasons which interact with work and stop them being able to work or can be worsened by their work. So I think we need to move a little bit away from the only focus on work-related, and in particular because we have an aging workforce. So it's going to be much more just normal in a way that workers will have osteoarthritis or some changes in their spine due to degenerative diseases. Yes, that might have been aggravated by the sort of physical activities they did, but it's not the only reason. And we know that many people hurt their back in the garden at the weekend, but it then stops them working on Monday. So I think we need to think about wider things than ergonomics. Yes, that's very important, a safe workplace, but we've also got to make sure that people invest in their own musculoskeletal health and keep fit and do regular physical activity, ideal body weight, and that employers and workplaces enable that to happen and encourage it to happen. And then we also need to make sure, as Sarah was highlighting, that people get good support. So if they do have a problem, that they can stay in work. And then again, the ergonomics need to be looked at, but more in a positive way of how can they be helped? And this is where I think digital workplaces give great opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you mentioned Sarah, this is a question for her. It asked, what would you have wanted to have from a digital health intervention that you didn't experience during your treatment?
Yeah, while this has been going on, I've been trying to think about this. I can't. overemphasize enough the importance of the human intervention in my healthcare. It took me a while to find the right physiotherapist for me, who was a sports physiotherapist. So, as has been alluded to, if AI or digitalization is going to be introduced into the healthcare, you still need that human contact. The AI can't provide you with the support to overcome your fears and stress and that sort of thing. But then it made me think that, well, on a low level, in the physiotherapy, some digitalization was being used on the simple level of videoing me when I was doing exercises, and to remind me also when new exercises were introduced when I got home, to be able to review how I was going to do them. So perhaps there could be a role there for AI to assist the physiotherapists in looking at their patient, and if they're doing things like exercises, to pinpoint where they might be doing things wrong or could be doing them more efficiently, in a similar way to the Siemens ergonomics risk assessment type thing. So I thought that could be a role. I mentioned in my intervention that I used a lot of cushions. It was the prolonged sitting. Pressure sitting would bring on the sciatica. And I ended up using an orthopedic cushion for wheelchair users, but there are many on the market, and the orthopedic shop I went to was able to do an assessment of me sitting on different cushions, and using a computer program, it showed where the pressure points were. And using that method, I was able to buy the pressure relieving cushion that worked the best for me, because those things are very expensive. So that was also an aid. Biofeedback, maybe that can be developed in more ways to support the patient as well. I use biofeedback a bit for helping me to relax and to that sort of thing. So that's what I thought about.
Mm-hmm. Some of them seem to me like science fiction, to be honest. Tony, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I think what Sarah was saying, and also Oliver said, brings out some issues. I was recently at a meeting where it was being discussed about the role of AI in medicine in the future. And people were saying that the new patients will be more comfortable talking to a computer than to a person, because that's the way they're growing up. And I think it is worrying because, those of us who've been very hands-on clinical feel there are subtleties which will not be identified in that way. And I think Sarah highlighted the need for that human interaction. But I think it's something we're going to have to carefully watch, because with the lack of medical workforce, there is a serious thinking that AI could be the solution. And Oliver's already said that reading an X-ray, which you thought would be reasonably straightforward, unless the right question is asked, the answer is wrong.
Yeah, we have a comment in the Q&A also in this regard, saying that sometimes we put the AI before the problem or the solution, and then we find problems to tackle. Talking about all these solutions, we have a question here. What are the cost benefit of using these technological advancements? Are there any studies that you know? Do you have any experience? I don't know. Neil, Johannes?
Well, I can give you an example for the technology that we use for ergonomic risk assessment that's based on AI. We have some colleagues at one of the locations that frequently used just filming and standing next to the employees and doing the risk assessment on paper. And we did the business case, basically, actually, how much time do they need to be there at site? How much time do they need to actually evaluate risk assessment and so on and so on, compared to the technology that they can use? And what we found out is basically on a year's base, we could save 40 hours, like 1 work week, of the time of that expert in doing the paperwork assessment. And it's not like the money benefit that we have here. No, it's a time benefit, because now we can invest that 40 hours more in personal intervention, talking to people, seeing how we can really make the workplaces better, include them, make sure that they have a say in it. And this is something that we really focus more on. It's not about the money. That's also something nice, but the benefit is really that we can use the expertise of that expert to do their job really good.
Yep. You wanted to say something, Oliver? I don't know.
Well, yes, I think it's important to say, of course, there are a lot of possibilities how to make things better. But where we are now, we should accept that it's absolutely crucial that we evaluate every single step and arrange when it comes to practical experience, does it really help large scale or not? So right now, and that is maybe where I go back to this study that showed who is presenting new interventions, new possibilities. Well, I respect the industry has an interest, and I not only respect, I see and I really welcome that there are a lot of good solutions, but it's also important to see how do they work in real life, which is always much more complicated than a scenario or a setting that is actually a kind of a test setting. Sorry for that.
Yep. Fine. Just to announce everybody that this is being recorded, and it will be replayed on the EULAR TV starting from November 7th. So if you want to have the slides because somebody asked for, you can rewatch it as many times as you want. Okay. You also wanted to say something, Neil, because I saw your...
Me, Loretta? Yes. I just wanted to reflect a lot of what I hear from the community around the world of people living with musculoskeletal conditions, and that is that the policies involved are sometimes as important as the infrastructure and the physical or ergonomic aspects. Quite often people are hesitant about speaking about their condition, and part of that is because they feel they don't have a right to, or that they won't be appreciated or understood. So I think it's enormously important that companies and employers generally foster a culture and a set of policies that are universal in promoting good public health messages about posture and movement and so on, but actually ensure that they know that their employees have every right to mention their condition, and that the likely consequence of that is going to be support rather than punishment for not being seen as fit and able. So there's something very important here, I think, about empowerment, and there are rights and responsibilities on all sides in that.
So I think since we have to finish the webinar, I see Sarah's raised hand, but I think this sentence insights from Neil could be a good ending point for this webinar, specifically on this. The solution is in the hands of everybody, not only the employer, not only the health systems, but everybody, also the people who suffers. So thank you much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you all the speakers, and thank you all the people in the chat. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye, bro.